Hi everyone, I'm Shaylin here with Reedsy. So today we're going to be talking about some social media ideas for writers. It can seem really obvious for published writers what they should be posting on their social media accounts in order to promote their books. You can post pictures of your book, fan art submissions from readers, you can do cover reveals. But how are you supposed to build a social media presence as an aspiring author who doesn't have a book deal and maybe hasn't even completed their manuscript yet? We talk a lot about building a platform and building a following, but how are you supposed to do that if you don't have a book to share yet? How are you supposed to find readers when you're still writing your book? Luckily, there are a ton of things that you can do to build a readership and grow your platform while you're still writing your book. So today we're going to run through a couple best practices for building a platform as an aspiring writer, as well as a bunch of different ideas on what you can post in order to promote your book, even when you're still writing it. So first of all, let's just run through a couple important key tips. First of all is to create a consistent brand and aesthetic. Synchronize all of your social media platforms so they have the same general look. You might use the same profile picture across all of them, the same headers. You can use these same images on your author website, which yes, you can still have an author website even as an aspiring author. And you want this to be in line with the type of work that you write. If you're using really bold, intense, dark colors, but then you write really sweet romance books, it may not align. So if you're a romance writer, you probably want to lean more towards maybe pastel colors. So use images, colors, and fonts that align with your brand as an author. Second, you want to think about making your posts visually appealing and in line with your brand. So if you're doing something like posting a quote, which we'll talk about a little later, instead of just posting that quote, you might put it on a background, something that's in line both with the aesthetic of your book, but also with your overall brand as an author. So you want to use this kind of overall brand that you're creating for your social media pages, but also for your posts as well. That said, we are going to talk throughout this video about things that you can share while you're still writing your book, but you do want to be safe when sharing your work. Think about how much of your work you want to share in order to guard yourself from things like plagiarism. It does happen, it can happen, and writers are more at risk of having their work plagiarized due to the rise of AI, even though a book written with an AI is doubtfully, and in fact it's not going to be as good as a book that you write yourself. There is still the risk of someone stealing ideas, using an AI to generate it, and self-publishing it. So you do want to be safe about your ideas and only share what you feel comfortable sharing. You don't need to share a ton about an idea to pique people's interests. Sometimes just the genre and a couple comp titles can be enough. Ultimately, this is up to your discretion and what you feel comfortable sharing, but I do think it's important to keep in mind. And finally, pin posts with the most important information at the top of your profiles. On Instagram and TikTok, you can pin several posts, and on Twitter, you can pin one. So you want to pin posts with things like publications, if you have a book deal, especially if you also use your social media platforms as personal platforms as well. I would recommend pinning posts that are related to the most important announcements you have regarding your book. So if you're still in the drafting stage, you might pin one that's introducing your project, and then later on when you sign a book deal, you'll probably want to pin your book deal announcement. Then later on when you have a cover, pin your cover announcement, those kinds of things. So those are some general good practices. Let's jump into a bunch of different post ideas that you can use if you're not sure what you should actually be posting in order to build an author platform. First of all, a really great one is mood boards. Mood boards are great because they're very visually appealing, and so they're great for standing out in someone's feed, catching someone's eye, and you can really pique a reader's attention without actually sharing any concrete information about your book. So it's a very safe way to get a reader's attention without any risk of plagiarism at all. It kind of keeps up a bit of mystery about the project, plus they're very fun to make. There are even pitch events based on mood boards now. So if you're not sure what to share, I think mood boards are a great way to do that. Another really fun thing is character introductions, especially if you are an artist and so you have art of your characters, or if you commission character art. I think commissioning character art is a really great investment to make as an author at the point where you're starting to grow your platform a little more and you want to share a little more information about your book. A lot of commissioned character artwork is actually quite reasonably priced as well. This is another great way to catch someone's attention when they're scrolling through their feed because it's very visual. And if you're at the stage where you want to share a little more about your project, you can share some information about the main character or main characters in order to really pique a reader's interest. This is something else that you can still do without even sharing much about the concept of your book, just getting people interested in the characters at the core of the story, even if you're keeping details of the story itself a little more mysterious. You can also share quotes. If you want to give readers a little snippet, a little sneak peek, you can share a couple interesting quotes or passages from your draft. One thing to keep in mind here, I wouldn't recommend doing this with short fiction if you intend to go on to publish this short fiction in literary magazines just because it can impact your publication options in the future. However, sharing a few snippets or quotes from a novel is totally fine. A lot of writers have a ton of success sharing a punchy or effective quote or passage from their work. It's another great way to really catch a reader's attention. If the quote is really powerful, really impactful, really well written, you're showing to a future reader that not only do you have an interesting concept, an interesting story, but you have the skill to actually pull it off and write it. If you have a quote that's really emotionally impactful or engaging on its own, that can be a great thing to share. Another thing you can do is write out a pitch based on the tropes in your book. This has become increasingly popular as more and more authors are marketing based on the tropes in their books. This has become especially popular over the past few years, especially when it wasn't something we used to see as much. So if you're writing a book that makes use of some really beloved tropes, it's actually quite common to post a list of all the tropes that are present in your book. You especially see this in books that are very romance-centric, because a lot of romance readers have tropes that they really like, and so they seek out books with those specific tropes. If that's something that's integral to the concept of your book, that's something that you can share on social media, again, even without posting many details about the concept. You can also just make use of current trends on TikTok, Reels, or Twitter. There are new trends that pop up on different social media platforms pretty much daily, and so you can ask yourself how you can apply that to your work. On Twitter especially, you'll see a lot of book-specific trends where there will be different trends that go around based on how people pitch their book. So if you're active in the Twitter community, you can stay on the lookout for these trends that pop up, different ways of pitching your book, and get on board when they happen. And the same thing happens on video-based platforms like TikTok or Reels. Tons of different trends pop up all the time. And so ask yourself how you can adapt those to be about your book, even if it's not a writing-specific trend. Another thing you can share to build your author platform is writing tips that you implement into your writing practice. Not all author platforms have to be based around giving advice. But if you have any tips that you find personally really helpful in your writing practice, you can share those and they may connect with other writers. Whether that's a way of organizing your document, a way of staying motivated, or just a little writing trick or technique that you found helpful, that's another thing that you can share in order to build a platform. You can also share behind-the-scenes glimpses into your process, such as glimpses at notes, maps, character profiles. Especially if you have a very visual writing process, I think that that's something people are very drawn to. Let's say you have very beautiful and elaborately organized Notion boards that you use to track your writing goals and world building. That's something that people love to see. And it's also very visual, so it can be very eye-catching in a feed. Something like maps, charts, or outlines are also very visually appealing, and so it can be a great thing to share if you want to give a little behind-the-scenes sneak peek into how your writing process works. You can also share personal insights into your life that relate to your writing. A lot of people will use their social media platforms as both a personal account and a writing account, but you can also look for the points where those things cross over. Say you're really into camping and hiking, and you're also a horror writer, and so you're planning on writing a book that's set in the wilderness during a camping or hiking trip. You can post pictures from your own camping and hiking adventures and talk about how they've inspired your work. Or you can show any snapshots from any real-life research that you've done. Say you visit the location of your book. Or say you took a fencing class to learn how to fence in order to more accurately write the sword fighting in your book. That could be something really, really fun to share. As you near a book's release date or the point where you're going to be sharing more information about your book, you can also try playing games with your audience. For example, giving a clue about the book's title, and getting readers to guess what the title is, maybe offering a prize for the person who gets it right or gets it the closest. Something else that can be really fun is to share your writing playlist. So many writers make use of writing playlists, and a lot of people love seeing other writers' writing playlists. If you already have one created, that can be something that's really easy to share and that people really enjoy seeing. And finally, you can create resources. Those could be resources on writing, or if you have an area of expertise that would be really useful to writers, you can create resources on these other topics and offer them to writers. Say you have a degree in medieval history and you know the expertise you have would be really, really useful to writers who are writing medieval style fantasy. You can create resources using your own expertise on the topic. So those are a few general guidelines and post ideas for how to create a social media presence as an author. If you have any questions about the content in this video, you can drop us a question in the Google form linked below. Whether it's on building a social media presence as an author or any other writing topic, you can leave them in that form and your question may be answered in an upcoming video. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos from us. We've got new writing, editing, and publishing tips every Friday on this channel. Until next time, bye.